strictly. Oh well, that word again.
Good to go, Chair.
Okay, I've got both of them up on my other computer, so welcome to the Economy and Environment Overall and Scrutiny Committee, 6th to the 3rd, and we're looking at draft recycling strategy today. So welcome. So welcome and apologies, number one. It says on here, welcome all members and officers to the hybrid meeting of the Economy and Environment Overall and Scrutiny Committee. This meeting is able to be reviewed by live members of the press and public today. Therefore, I may welcome anyone to be watching remotely. A recording of this meeting will be made available on the Council's webcasting and YouTube channels after the meeting has been concluded, should anybody wish to view it. To confirm as Council, we will... Oops, just a minute, somebody's decided to go over the top of my... Council, we welcome the use of the Welsh language within our public meetings, but I can confirm that I have not received any notification request to use Welsh today. Therefore, the meeting will be conducted in English only. Remind members to refrain from using the chat facility. Instead, use the raised hand icon to indicate whether you wish to speak. Please, could you also keep your microphone muted when not talking, so there are not any interruptions encountered. May I also remind members that as per statutory guidance under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask you to please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting? Moving on to the agenda, could Neil, our Democratic Services Officer, confirm, have we received any apologies?
Good afternoon, members. Yes, we've received apologies from councillors Carl Goulden, Alan Slade, David Williams and Nathan Yole.
That's all, isn't it? I hope it is, any rate.
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So onwards and upwards. Next item is declarations of interest. It does invite people to declare declarations of interest, but the usual one is, I think on this one, unless I'm corrected, if you feel you've got any declarations of interest, please notify as we proceed. Right, next item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of January 2025. Just to remind members that these minutes relate to the report we received on the asset management strategy. I'm sure you remember that. Please do you approve these minutes as an accurate record? Anybody got anything what they want to raise? Great. So Nick, you've moved it, and who's going to second that one? Linda, I saw that. Thank you. Nothing to raise. Great, lovely. Action sheet. Have we got anything on? That's the next section after that. Is there anything on the action sheet that needs raising?
Thank you, Chair. If I can just come in briefly, please. Just to let you know, we're still waiting for the responses to the recommendations from that asset management meeting, and there was one action from the meeting as well. I've spoken to the officers, and it's expecting it imminently, so hopefully at the start of next week I'll be able to share that with the committee.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. So that then leads us on to agenda item number 5, which is draft recycling strategy 2025 to 2030. The purpose of this report, pardon me, I've got another long section here. The purpose of this report is to seek the committee's views on the recycling strategy 25 to 30 prior to taking the strategy to Cabinet for approval. May I welcome Councillor Sue Morgan, Executive Member for Waste and Sustainability, Mark Thomas, Interim Strategic Director for Economy and Environment, and Claire Cutforth, Head of Waste Transformation, to this meeting. May I take this opportunity Let's see what I got on here. Sorry about this. So that's welcome to. And which of you wants to kick off to say something? I think it's Sue, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this draft recycling strategy for 2025 through to 2030 before you today. It's a really welcome opportunity to test the strategy with input from members who we know take a lot of interest and have a lot of experience and expertise in these areas. Just wanted to set the context, really, just to remind ourselves that Wales is currently second in the world for its recycling performance. So when we're looking at Torfaen's performance, it's within that context of a really strong performance on recycling from Wales as a whole. We have had issues with performance in the past. We are improving. There is a long way to go. There are still big challenges ahead of us. But to remember that this strategy is very much dealing with that big pathway to improvement and achieving our goals, and that we see recycling not just in isolation, but as part of the reduce, reuse, recycle triumvirate, if you like. And I think it's always really important when we talk about the Torfaen approach that we remember that we're dealing with that bigger picture, that reducing consumption is probably best, that reuse and extending the life of things is second best, and recycling is the sort of last option in that triumvirate. So I'm really keen that we keep that context in mind. I just want to say that the big challenges around infrastructure, around digitalisation and around culture shift within the department all take time. And it's difficult sometimes, isn't it? We're all impatient to see the benefits of these shifts starting to come through, but they are big juggernauts to move. We've made a pact with our citizens here in Torfaen to collect their residual waste 2 weekly, because they made it very clear to us that that was what their preference was and their wishes were. And they in turn have agreed that they would do all they can to raise their recycling rate so that we can go forward together in that partnership. So that partnership approach is going to depend on lots and lots and lots of engagement. Then it's going to depend on us being willing to enforce as and when we need to. And that's something members have come with us on that journey. And it's going to need persistence. And I really thank the Scrutiny Committee for supporting on all three of those fronts, as I know you do, and look forward to receiving your recommendations on this report. I'll hand to Mark now. Thank you.
Just before you do, apologies, I did miss a bit out of here, and it's very brief, I must say it. I may take this opportunity to thank members of the public for their comments regarding the report, which there were quite a few, which have been appreciated by all members of the committee when formulating our questions for today's meeting. Sorry about that, Sue. I put you in there before I said that little bit. But
no, it's a very important thank you to make, Chair, and I'd support you and reiterate that myself. Yeah. Thank you.
So over to Mark without much ado. Sorry about that, Mark.
No problem at all, Chair. And again, really thank you for the opportunity. And I have to pay tribute as well to Claire, really, in terms of her expertise in drawing this report together, which I think is, to me, is comprehensive and makes a clear way forward in terms of how we're going to achieve those challenging targets. A couple of comments I have, and then obviously I hand over to Claire. But I guess following on from Councillor Morgan's point as well, 3.11 of the report does cover in terms of our sort of important message in terms of our strategy. It's guided by that waste hierarchy, which Councillor Morgan has said, in terms of not just recycling, but obviously of reusing and prevention before we hit recycling. And that's more nuanced. Our approach, I think, is far more nuanced than the very broad recycling targets driven by the Welsh Government. So there's no criticism, obviously, but I'm just saying that our approach is more nuanced, and we're looking at the wider benefits in terms of what we can do to really both reach those targets in terms of the 70% recycling target, but also encourage less waste to come through those streams as well. So we have less waste to deal with. So it's a wide range, and as Councillor Morgan said, we're trying our very best to work with our communities to deliver that step change in culture, not just with our communities but internally as well, about how we plan and deliver our services. I think that this authority should be very proud of itself in terms of being very much community and member led, and as Councillor Morgan has suggested, that as sort of formalised within that pact with our citizens as well, which we take very seriously as well. So just an overview really. The report, obviously, I'm sure you've read it, gives a good position statement about why we have to change as well, not just because of the climate and nature emergency, but obviously of the potential for fines from Welsh Government if we don't hit our targets. We're making good progress. We hit the Welsh Government target, only for them to increase it up to 70%, and so we're after that target now as well, really, to try and achieve that. So there's good signs of progress, but there's far more to do. I'll hand over to Claire, really, who's the author of the report, and Claire will take us through the 6 priorities that underpin this strategy. Claire, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, as Mark has mentioned, the targets have increased this year to 70%. So although we achieved the 64% last year, we recognise there's still more to do in order to achieve the 70% target, and that's why we need this new strategy to build upon the old strategy and the achievements we've already made in recycling. And as Councillor Morgan said, these are great achievements. We are second in the world for recycling in Wales, so this is no mean feat. But we've identified 6 priorities within the strategy that we believe will help us to achieve that 70% recycling target. And these have built upon what's gone before. So last year we approved the roadmap to raise the rate, which included 5 work streams, and those 5 work streams closely align with the first 5 priorities within the strategy. So the first priority within the strategy is to improve recycling services, which closely aligns with the service quality work stream of the roadmap to raise the rate. And that links with things such as Councillor Morgan mentioned, digitalisation of services, ensuring our staff are trained and well equipped and have the right vehicles to do the job effectively and efficiently. So improving our services so that people want to participate in those services and giving the best quality services we can, reducing miscollections through digitisation. Secondly, the second priority is to increase recycling rates, and obviously we hope that improving recycling services will do that, but we also want to look to expand the range of materials that people can recycle within the borough, and so that will lead to things such as looking at can we collect small electrical items at the curbside, but also in the longer term plastic film, which will actually become a legal requirement from 2027 onwards. Thirdly, we need to enhance our infrastructure. Obviously, if we collect more recycling, then we need more capacity to process it. And also, if we're going to collect a wide range of materials, the plant that we use, the recycling transfer station that we use, needs to be of sufficient capability to process that extra material that we're collecting. And in addition to that, there's always demographic growth to take into account. So as there are more residents, there is more waste and recycling to deal with. So we need to ensure infrastructure is fit, not just for now, but for the future as well. Our fourth priority is to support business recycling, which again links back to the 4th work stream on the roadmap, which is business recycling. We've already implemented a legally compliant service because of the new regulations that came in April last year, and that has had a really positive impact on our recycling performance so far. We've seen a lot more recycling coming from businesses since we introduced that new service to segregate waste at the curbside, but we recognise that we need to continue to build upon that again, and moving forwards that legislation is going to bring in requirements to recycle additional materials at the curbside again, so things such as small electrical items and textiles. So we need to be prepared to grow alongside the legislation and collect those additional materials. The fifth priority is to promote waste minimisation, reuse and repair, which links with what both Councillor Morgan and Mark said about prioritising not just recycling, but actually the top of the waste hierarchy, if you like, which is to avoid the waste in the first place by doing things such as reuse and repair, working with our partners such as Waste Savers to have repair cafes, for example, to encourage waste minimisation and reuse, not just recycling. But obviously alongside that, then we've got the enforcement policy that was passed towards the end of last year, and looking at a programme of engagement with our residents to try and support them as much as possible to recycle their waste. Lastly, priority 6 is to decarbonise services. Now, this doesn't directly link to the roadmap as such, but to the wider corporate priority to decarbonise the fleet insofar as possible by 2030, in line with evolution of technologies in this area. So that's a quick summary of the 6 priorities within the waste strategy, which we believe will help Torfaen to reach that 70% target. Obviously, alongside that, community engagement is critical, with various activities being undertaken to involve residents, not just in terms of consulting on the strategy itself, but in terms of engaging them in the longer term and supporting them as much as possible to recycle as much as they can. We would welcome your feedback on the draft recycling strategy as it stands, and any ideas for further improvement or development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. And it was a very comprehensive report. Before I say a little bit, I'm going to lead us into the questions. And we generated 27 questions on this. We've also got 3 members of the strategy group and a former member of Torfaen Community Recycling on this group. So we hope we can do you justice on your report. You know, it was a good report. Thank you. So I say that I'm very experienced other members as well. So they're passionate about this subject. So hopefully we'll get going on this, and with what I've told to say on here, but I will say without much ado, we'll get on to the questions. And for number 1 question is Councillor Norman Parish.
Thank you, Chair. This relates to 3.4 of the report. It's clear from Table 1 that most of the high-performing local authorities in Wales are rural. Is this significant? And are there any lessons to be learnt from this? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the table in section 3.4, whilst some are rural, you have also got Swansea performing quite well, and Bridgend, as well as the Vale of Glamorgan. So although I think the nature of the authority can definitely have an impact on recycling performance, so there are more challenges for some than for others, I think there are a combination of factors, and some of that can be the residual waste collection type and frequency as well. So, for example, a number of these undertake restricted bag collection, so they only collect either 2 or 3 bags, either per fortnight or per 3 weeks. So that can have an impact, but there are so many factors that can influence it. But certainly rurality can have an impact, particularly when it comes to garden waste. So obviously garden waste does contribute to our recycling performance as well. Mark?
Yes, thanks, Claire. Yes, you're right, Councillor Parish. Demographics are important elements as well, obviously, as you probably can tell. Bridgend, Monmouthshire, Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion and Carmarthenshire, Conwy, Swansea, don't tend to be sort of valley communities. Sort of high density housing does have a challenge in terms of available space in which to undertake recycling as well. So there are specific issues that we need to plan for and be adapt to better suit the needs of our community. So as you've already picked up, Councillor Parish, really is that one size does not fit all. We've got to meet the needs of our local communities. So I think that has an impact across all the Wales, really.
Any more on this one before we leave it? It did raise quite an interesting debate, actually, because it's very stark on the on that table.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys know that at any rate. So,
Yeah.
Norma, did you want to come back?
No, it's fine, thank you.
Right, thank you, guys. Next question, number 2, Councillor Nick Horler.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. This also relates to 3.4 about the table. Could you provide a brief update on TBC's progress in the current year of 25? And I might add a caveat to that. Has there been any increases because of the new red bag that's been put on board? Has there been any increase on that because of that nature? Thank you.
Can I take that first, Chair? And then obviously I'm sure Claire will come in.
If you would, Mark.
Yeah. The first thing to say, really, Councillor Horler, is that it's too soon to say in terms of the impact on red bags. We've seen, obviously, good uptake across the majority of Torfaen. I think I'd be a bit disingenuous if I said it was 100% successful, because obviously you and I have had a lot of discussions about that issue as well. But that's natural in terms of those teething problems. In terms of performance-wise, we are seeing an increase in performance in terms of quarters 1 and 2 over last year. We have had an issue with regard to quarter 3 in how we have handled some of the green waste, but that's an operational issue which we are working on now. But overall, so far, there's been an upward trend in terms of our recycling performance in connection to last year. But as you say, we've got a long way to go, and we're keen to get on with it, really.
Thank you.
You right with it, Nick? So next question.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, we're going on to introductory pages of the main report, as it were. That was the setting the scene. The next question is question 3. That's me, page 30 and others. With public consumption of the strategy in mind, how have we taken this into consideration? The accessibility of the strategy document. For example, members suggested that reference to waste operations on page 30 needed to be clearly defined, and reference to inert on page 37 should be either explained or removed. There are other references throughout the strategy that could be reworded. I think we were a little bit mindful of jargon of recycling. We get this with education and social services as well. One member who's not here did suggest we might need a glossary.
Thank you, Chair.
Take that one.
Yeah, can you take us through the specifics? And obviously, very much agree that we should avoid jargon. And yes, it's someone who's had a steep learning curve in waste and recycling. I share the pain. So if there is any jargon,
waste operations on 30. Inert on page 37, and there were a few others in it. It was Councillor Williams that picked it up, but he's good on that. That's his hobby, I think he suggested. And, you know, it's the plain English thing. I was chairing a meeting. I didn't see them. I would have done had I. It's easy to do because you're in the business, and we understand that.
No, we'll certainly take on board those points, and and de-jargonise, if it's such a word, the report. But
you're
Claire,
not as bad as education and social services.
Well, that's good. Thank you very much for that compliment.
And they do, when they get me having a go at them and others, and looking at Norma here, they do have they do provide glossaries. So if you get that problem, and Claire?
Yes, thank you for the feedback. It is appreciated, and we can certainly amend those terms. I was just going to add that we do normally try and produce an easy read version for the strategy once it's approved as well. Yeah. So it will go through, once approved, it'll go through the design phases, and also an easy read version will be produced.
try explaining the word cullet to people as well. I as I was the member of Torvine Community Recycling. Linda, do you want to come in?
Yes, please, Chair. Just wanted to give a couple more examples, really. There was some...
You did it as well, didn't you? I forgot, yes.
I did, yeah. There were things mentioned in the report without any explanation. People would either have to go off and look for, or they would be none the wiser. So there was quite a lot of the report that was focused in that way. Sort of the deposit return scheme, marmot reviews, that type of thing, general members of the public. Whether or not that needs to be in there was what we were sort of talking about. It's a very technically presented report, and we definitely need, we mentioned easy read version, but something that was a little bit more streamlined and understandable for the general public to have any idea what we're on about.
I think
we're all used to these terms and all of this, but there really is quite a bit of technical stuff in there.
I think Claire's rather answered it with the word easy read, haven't you, Claire? Thank you. Right, as Councillor Hayes' voice, is your voice still gone there, Liz?
It's not great and it hurts.
So I'll get Nick Haller to do it for you, if that's okay.
Okay,
I'm going to get him.
Sorry to come in. I think Councillor Clarkson may have either asked or at least touched on the next question anyway, so you may not need anyone to cover it. It's up to you.
So that's fine. Just move on to the next question, which is...
Right, next question, Councillor Clarkson, question 5, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking at page 32 of the report. Within the challenges section, members felt that those listed could be seen as background information, and that the list doesn't really refer directly to the challenges that we've got around things such as staff retention, access, presentation of waste at the curbside, which we would all understand to be challenges. Would you sort of have a view on that and how we can sort of make that more clear?
Are you okay with that? Who wants that one?
Sorry, Chair. I was just I'm making notes as well. So
yeah.
That's a valid point. We can add those challenges in, I guess. Councillor Clarkson, in terms of so the presentation at curbside, are you talking about obviously residents' behaviour and also how we return, so that the level of service that we present to our customers as well, in terms of returning those?
Yeah. It's very much a two-way street. We've got access issues as well that the public needs to be aware of. Collection points where we've still got disparity, where recycling's collected here, bins and green waste are collected there. Communication on those sort of things. It would be easier if it was streamlined. We always have access problems, people with parking on the narrow streets. The whole gamut of the challenges that we know are faced every week on the actual rounds, and it would be good to have the reality of that actually within the report.
No, thanks, Chair. If I can come back, please, if you don't mind, to Councillor Clarkson. It's a valid point that we have, and it's very good because we're developing plans now, Councillor Clarkson, to try and overcome some of those issues as well. And which will need a lot of consultation and support with ward members as well. So yeah, it's a good point that you make, and we'll definitely take on board those issues.
Yeah, it's all part of the social contract, really. It's a two-way street. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Right, thank you there, Councillor Morgan.
Yes, forgive me for coming in on this, Chair, but I think
please do. It's good to have you.
I think Councillor Clarkson's right. That subheading, our challenges, is actually the problem. That's a section of context. It isn't a section of specific challenges, which are set out further on in the strategy in much more detail and are much more helpfully presented. I think a simple word change on that heading to our context would probably do the job.
Right. Any more for any more? Okay, I'll go on to the next one. Question number 6. Referring to page 33, which I believe is the big bin. Figure 5, which is the purple bin. What more can be recycled? Are there plans to keep this image in place as an easy reference benchmark and tool to present progress to the public. I think it was rather liked by the Scrutiny Committee as an explanation of what more we could do. Who wants to start that one?
Yeah, Chair, it's certainly a very powerful image, and really one does, it's shocking once you look at it, and that's why it comes as no surprise we're targeting through our engagement at the moment in terms of activities on door knocking to try and target that gets that 30% of food waste out of our residual waste, and we're monitoring in terms of the impact on our engagement activities as well. Just going to topic slightly, but just give you some flavour of what we're doing. We're looking at, I think we've delivered some in the region of about 800 brown food caddies as a result of our engagement activities across there. So that's really positive, and it shows that intent. And obviously we'll be then monitoring the uptake with regard to the food sort of recycling as part of that. But in terms of going back to that image, yes, I'm sure we will be updating that image as and when performance sort of improves, and hopefully, as you say, it's a powerful indicator, isn't it, in terms of progress. And what we want to see eventually is nothing left in that box except that a very small black blob at the bottom.
Any more for that one? I got this image of the black blob in the bottom there, and I just dread to think where that would go. Okay, next is question number 7, Councillor Clarkson. I'm informal today. You right there, Linda? We can't hear you.
Sticky button. Apologies. Yeah, we're looking again at page 35 of the report, communication and engagement. And sort of in terms of communication engagement, we are relying a lot on complaints and social media feedback. So what we were discussing was whether there was any scope to have something more like a people's panel type drop-in meets and greets to discuss things with wider areas, maybe at the foyer, supermarket foyers, that type of thing, so people could give their comments and sort of thoughts on how things are developing. It would be a tough ask. It would be a difficult conversation, but just to try and get more involved and more engaged in the process, and to get more balance, maybe, we were thinking, because a lot of people who choose to respond on social media, there's a lot of negativity in there, and we know that there's a quiet amount of people who are more positive about the arrangement. So just trying to sort of think outside the box as to how we could improve on that community engagement aspect.
Who wants to answer that one?
I come in?
Yes, please. Is that Claire?
Yes. So we have got a team that do undertake outreach work, and obviously we've been doing a number of sessions as part of the recycling strategy consultation as well. But as Mark mentioned earlier, we have had a door-to-door engagement team out, and they've spoken to a number of residents. They've knocked on well over 10,000 doors and spoken to a number of residents. So we will be receiving a report soon with feedback from residents, for example, with information such as why they don't recycle their food waste, and having those more meaningful conversations with them, as you suggest. But yes, I agree. I think more of that sort of work moving forwards is really key to us getting our waste services right.
Right, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, Chair, I thought it'd be helpful just to follow on from Claire's comments in terms of our engagement staff have knocked 10,000 doors. If they don't get a response, they come back again and they try again. So it's not just knocking doors and if there's no response, off they go. There's a concerted effort here to really engage with members of the public, and we've had sort of a good level of uptake as well. So what we're looking at in terms of our data, we're looking at the number of houses, a number of doors knocked, the number of responses, how many people have actually opened the door, and then of those conversations, or how many then convert to actual conversations, positive conversations, and then we're looking at what the impact is. And as I alluded to before, there seems to be a positive upswell in terms of people taking on that message about food recycling at the least, and ordering and delivering of those brown caddies seems to be a positive sort of green shoots of progress anyway, which at the moment it's too soon to celebrate, but it's positive action, positive signs.
You'll get us some green shoots. Great, that's lovely. Councillor Nicola?
Yeah, just to say I've had one of those ladies engaged with me on my doorstep. That was quite an interesting conversation. Say no more.
Right.
But last year we engaged with the communities through events like the Pontypool Park and Heritage Day and things like that.
Yeah.
I asked clearly, can we do that this year? I think we've actually kind of said that. But maybe if we could put a little bit more impact into it by showing the amount of waste that shouldn't go into those bins in context. I know that we've had people talking about it, but is there a way of actually demonstrating and showing public the amount of rubbish that shouldn't be going into those bins in context? I don't mean rubbish, but the amount of volume, and show it as a visual impact. Would that actually horrify people going, oh, shoot, if this didn't go into the bin, we would have more space long term? And if this went into the other bins, is there a way of demonstrating that in a public arena? It's just a thought. If it demonstrates that people are complaining about that they can't fill if people are saying that the bins are too small, and if you could show what doesn't go into a bin in a public arena, then it would actually clearly demonstrate that the amount of rubbish that shouldn't go into those bins would make it more viable for them to have a bin like that. I just think it's just a demonstration of showing how it works. I think it might help people. I don't know. Claire, you're quite into that kind of thing.
Right. Mark, you come in first. You've got the passion of a member of the strategy committee here, haven't you?
I think so.
I know Linda would come in as well on this.
No, I think it's an excellent idea, and
Yeah.
it's a good visual tool, isn't it? And something that we could potentially develop as an aid to communicate at public events. I think it's something we'll definitely go in and look at as well. And the other issue is as well, members might consider is and going back to that table that we had of previous authorities and how they perform. Some authorities don't have that black bin either. They just look at the black bags. And if you had food in black bags,
I might suggest as a visual cue that you do a giant version of it, like a 10-foot one. The bigger, the better.
That's it as it is.
I think that's what you suggested, guys, the other day, wasn't it? Something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, I kind of get that. Right, next one is Councillor Haynes's question. And Nick, do you want to do that?
Okay, so this is still on page 35. Introducing an end-to-end digital process for the resident service requests. Not all residents are digital, and particularly some older residents. So what support is available to residents in order to avoid these digital conclusions? Now, you can appreciate that we've had quite a few contestants on this. I spoke to a resident the other day who didn't want to use digital, who didn't want to go on the phone, and didn't want to spend best part of 20 to 30 minutes hanging on to talk to a customer service operator to get a few bags. Hence the conversations that we've had over the last few months about the way I feel about what's going on in the north of the borough. But at the end of the day, not everybody wants to use the phone and not everybody wants to use digital. So what support can we give those guys that don't want to have that digital exclusion?
Chair, can I come in on that one?
Please do.
Yes, Councillor, it's a very good point, and I think it's something that, if I have to say, the exec member for has been berating me on as well on certain issues as well, in terms of not assuming everybody's just sort of digitally active. So it's a good point, well made. We are looking at obviously engagement with obviously the ward members and trying to build that community cohesion as well, to try and get support in. So for example, neighbours or relatives are able to sort of access those areas as well, where we are unable to, where members of the public are unable to or unwilling to engage sort of digitally, which should be recognised. And also what we try to do as well with anything that any amendments to services as well, we tend to letter drop or advise residents and then offer assistance if we identify there are difficulties as well. So we try to, where we can, to try and be as accommodating as possible and ensure that we just don't assume everybody will just ping us an email.
Anybody else on that one? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I am happy on it. I just think sometimes it's easier to have more convenience around areas to make it easier for these people than it is to engage on digital or even pick up the phone. I get that members can help. I get that. I get residents can help each other.
Yeah.
But sometimes there is need to help each other, but there's also need to help yourself. And sometimes that's very difficult if you don't have a neighbour or if you don't have somebody that wants to help you out and you want to do it yourself, but you physically can't do it. It's very difficult. And I think we've had lots of conversations recently about that. So let's leave it there, I think. Thank you.
I was going to add that there are quite a lot of community hubs out there, CAB and all the rest of it. Is there any way which you engage with them at all? I mean, community hubs, the community halls and places like that, as some of them are distributing boxes, it's not beyond the wit of them to, in a local context, to help you out as well. I used to do, when I ran a community facility, recycling was part of that as well. It does seem maybe there's a scope there for with this as well. We're not all the town centres, are we?
No, I think, Chair, obviously what we've done is we've obviously sought to provide distinct areas where materials will be available within our communities across Torfaen, obviously.
I wasn't trying to jump that question, but it struck me, communication. We've got warm hubs as well. It's people, they want to make complaints or even praise you. It's communication. It's the problem, not necessarily that other one. I've got a feeling it's coming up later. That's why I was trying to keep off that.
I can imagine, Chair. But yeah, it's any suggestions, anything like that, in terms of like how best to communicate with our residents, then we'll gladly take that on board. But it's identifying and it's working with our communities and members to identify those people who need that additional support, and will happily do so. But it's just getting that intelligence, I suppose.
Next question is Norma Parish. Councillor number 9, Norma.
Thank you, Chair. This question is we're still on page 35. When is the in-cab technology likely to be operational, and what benefits will it bring?
Chair, if I can go first with the not a flippant answer, but an answer which is easy for me to say, and then I'll defer it in more detail to Claire, if I may. But the digitalisation, some of it has already been rolled out, Councillor Parish, but what we're looking at is we have to have a phased approach here so that we can properly manage the process, ensure that the digitalisation element that we are producing is fit for purpose. We properly trial it before we move on to the next phase. So it's very much an iterative approach, Councillor Parish, really. And that's how it's been explained to me. So we are making progress. So there is already some in-cab technology being trialled. I think it's for our bulky waste. And then we're going to look at a sort of a route by route process so that we can really capture that data accurately, map the routes, and then obviously the benefits of that is that we will eventually have better intelligence in terms of the operation of our services. We'll be able to better map collections and where we're missing collections, and we'll be better placed then to rationalise those routes so that we can make sure that we are, because deploying these wagons and staff, that's an expensive operation, and what we want to do is to get the most efficient use out of those out of that resource, and that's where the digitalisation will ultimately help us as well. Claire, did you want to come on top?
Thank you for that.
That, please.
Yes, certainly. So in terms of the digitalisation, as you said, Bulky is already live, so people can, if they wish to, book it online, and then that's automatically processed and booked for them, and then it comes straight through to the team who have an in-cab device, who can then go out and collect the waste on the scheduled day. The benefits for the customer longer term, the next phase is to get in-cab live in the recycling vehicles, and what the in-cab will do, it can optimise the routes to make sure that they're more efficient, so that's a benefit for the council, but it can also flag up things like assisted lift collections, so it will reduce missed assisted collections, which is a benefit for the customer. It's also possible using the in-cab technology to report things back, which perhaps the crews do with pen and paper now manually, and they can report things back like a broken bin or a contaminated bin, so that education can be arranged. So from a process point of view, it will be a quicker service, a more efficient service by the council, but also it's beneficial for staff, so it's automated. They're not using as much paper as well, which is better for the environment. So there are a number of benefits from both a customer and a council point of view.
Right, thank you.
Right, Mark?
Thanks, Chair. Just to give an example as well, Councillor Pash, this process has been adopted as well with regards to the highway maintenance, and we've got a new system in called Alloy and linkage with our site supervisors, and the amount of data and the improvement in the data in terms of the quality of our knowledge of our asset has hugely improved and has helped us immensely, and obviously we're expecting the same benefits when we roll that same approach out to waste and recycling.
Right,
Thank you.
I was going to ask you. Go on, Norma, please do.
Be less complaints then from the public.
Hopefully, Councillor Parrish,
yes.
Yes.
That's good.
Before bring Sue in, I was going to ask you a quick supplementary. Claire, you're saying to me that cabs on the recycling vehicle at some time in the future are going to go live, so they be able to report back like the maintenance vehicles, which we are aware of. So that in real time they'll be able to report back a lot of things. Were they the previous question, because I was thinking this when we were having that conversation, if an elderly person comes up and says, "Can you help me?" they can then report back to the office, to yourselves, in the problem, getting a yay back on that. Do you keep an in-house database of all this? When that happens, will you be able to say, number 6 Station Road or something has requested that, and with a live system? I gather at the moment you haven't got one by the sound of it. You're developing it.
Yeah, we're developing that system, and we'll be able to record things against the property, such as, for example, if they've been given a larger bin or an additional bin because they're a large family, or if they've been awarded a hygiene waste collection or any other sort of service like that, that will be, or an assisted collection, that will be flagged, and we will have a database with all that information, and we will be able to more accurately report on things like collections completed, collections failed, etc. So we will have a much more comprehensive database, but the in-cab will only be able to report on things that it's set up to report on. So if somebody's asking for assistance, it will be the same as it is now, where that would be reported back to the office, and the office would then maybe visit that customer to find out what their needs are if it wasn't something that's already prescribed on the in-cab.
Then the standard scrutiny question is, who else in South East Wales or Wales is doing this? Have you been to see it? Mark's grinning now. I understand that. You know, obviously best practice in this and how much it costs is the other usual question.
So it is best practice to have a system such as this in place. Newport are already using the same system as ourselves. Blaenau and Gwent are using a system. Cardiff are using a system. Monmouthshire are using a system. So we've been to visit a few of those. So yeah, we've done a lot of research into the system that we're using as well.
So that'd be one question that we could ask. Sue, sorry about that. Did you want to say anything after I've asked that question? I can't hear you. I still see your lips moving, but I still can't hear you. Sorry. All right. No,
You're on mute, Sue.
Pardon?
Can't get a mute off by the seams of it.
No, that's all right. Okay, but no, thank you very much for that. That's something in our recommendation for feedback, I think. Thank you very much indeed for that. Next question is, that was a good bit of work there. Next question is, I believe, Councillor Linda Clarkson again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah,
you're all right there, Linda?
Yes. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, fine.
Right, good. Yeah, next question is looking at page 35 again, how we're going to achieve things and the curbside actions. We're all aware that we have problems with recruitment, retention of staff, and the extra training and support that they'll be offering will hopefully make things a lot easier for them to do their job. But when the turnover is quite great, that demand for sort of training increases, obviously, and we may be using agency work who needs more supervision on the job. So what we were talking about yesterday was whether or not that we could sort of put a little bit more incentive into what is a very difficult job to attract more people in the first place, and training maybe slightly outside of their role, but would keep them within and retain them within the service for longer, because there was a progression. You know, there was something that they were actually getting from taking on this very hard role, which is the sort of bottom rung really in a lot of ways, but incredibly hard. The amount of miles that these crews put in on a daily basis is absolutely mind-blowing, and the conditions that they have to work in. So how, if we could make it more attractive and do anything to retain the staff for longer.
Mark, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's a very, very good point, Councillor Clarkson, and one which I've been trying. I am actually getting to grips with going forward. So yeah, definitely engagement with staff is key. So I've attended a number of meetings with staff and continue to meet with staff and unions to tick off certain issues that we're concerned about, in terms of definitely making sure that they feel valued and supported. So we're looking at their welfare facilities, looking at their kit, looking at their conditions as well. Staff benefits, a key point as well. From meeting with the staff is that one of the issues they were concerned about was the availability of summer leave over when the schools are out, so perhaps looking after their children. What we've done there is we've increased that capacity within our leave entitlement over that summer period, so greater numbers of our staff will have the opportunity to be off on annual leave so they can look after their children or be with their children. Therefore, we are forward planning so that we'll bring in additional agency staff and obviously spread them out so they're with experienced Torvine members of staff, but to accommodate that pressure. So those are little things that we're looking at. Yeah. We're also looking at the health and mental health and well-being, for example, and we're having road shows within the depot as well. So the staff come in early. They have HR staff and an initiative called Tidy Bet. I don't know if you know about that, but it's like a mental health issue. So we're looking at that sort of engagement as well, and support. And again, allowing them, because they don't obviously have access to a lot of the IT that office staff have. So, for example, we've got a dedicated session now with all the staff to talk them through the staff benefits, for example, to make sure they're aware of taking advantage of that. So that's the issue, and you're right, is in terms of, you've got to make sure that they're valued, looked after, protected, and they feel that they have the full benefit of a local authority employee as well. So that's where I'm starting at the moment, Councillor Clarkson, and obviously as we develop, we'll go into further to make sure that the staff are said properly trained and have career progression as well, as and when the professor are interested to progress. Is that okay, Councillor Clarkson?
That's excellent to hear. That's definitely moving in the right direction. Thank you.
I was just going to add, I know a couple of young men that work for you, and they're extremely proud to work for you, funnily enough. They're very manual orientated, and they love the job. And they were pleased to get the job. I know them very well indeed, and they stop and tell me how they enjoy the job. And that's not a thing people think. They love that sort of work. And it's not a common outlet these days.
So you're right, Chair, and I think one other element as well that we're proud to be involved with as well is that we are constantly reviewing our rounds as well. So there's an example where there was a report where our operatives were suggesting they were running the last sort of hour of their round just to get it complete. That there was an immediate action on top of that to review that, and changes were made. So with that intent on making sure that our staff are properly looked after. Yes, there are standards in which we expect our staff to adhere to, but they should expect respect and support as well from supervisors and management as well. So it's that sort of approach that we're taking.
Having run the charity that originally did this, I understand completely you're doing that. Nick,
just an observation. Lots of organisations throughout the country have employees of the week or the month.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've actually looked at, or is that something that you could look at to give them an encouragement to do it? I know I worked many years ago for a company that we had a target to hit, and every single time I got very close to the target, the next month the target went up. But that was either there, but I never got my target. However, is there a way that, lots of companies have employee a week or employee of the month? Is there a way that we could do that within these guys to give them a kind of a boost and to give them something to work for? You see that you've got the in-cab training now, you've got the cameras on board that you notice what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they're operating it. It wouldn't be too difficult to be able to go, well, hang on a minute, I've noticed this guy is doing his job exemplary. Can we praise him for that at the end of the month and give him the reason why? It's just a thought. It's, at the end of the day, these guys don't do one of the best jobs in the world, It's not the easiest, and I think long term, if they could be recognised in another way like that, it could be useful. Mark, you could actually go and give them an award every month. Great.
Well, that sounds holy. Yeah, I'm trying that approach already in terms of engaging with staff first of all, and picking off the low hanging fruit first of all. Really, Councillor Horler, as I've said before. So ensuring that we invest in our staff, as I've said about the welfare and facilities. I do meet with them, and they do get thanks as and when they do. They should get thanks all the time, but where they raise their head up against the parapet and it is clear that they've been exceptional, I will meet with them and thank them. The other issue is we're driving down agency staff as well. We want to try and get that permanent career progression with our staff as well.
Okay, we've got another. We're only on 11. We've got to go to 27, so we've got another hour or so to go on this. Okay, Councillor Horler, you're next.
Yeah, this is on priority number 2. So we're talking about increased recycling. Endeavouring to work with housing associations, private landlords to introduce recycling for many flat complexes and the multiple occupancy dwellings as possible. How much extra could we achieve in terms of raising the rate to the 70% by this work stream, and have considered more aspirational in aiming to work with these complexes and dwellings. It was a question I asked at full council this week. I get that the fact that if there was a way of actually raising the rate in many ways, this could be an ideal opportunity to help raise the rate, because currently we're not doing it. The flats are not designed for what there was, and if there was a way we could do that, then this would be an extra percentage or a couple of percentages on to where we are now, which would really help. I think that's why I kind of raised the question at full council the other day. Thank you.
So prior to the programme being developed, RAP did some extensive work for us, analysing where we could increase our recycling performance and how much that would generate. In terms of flats, it was only 0.2% on our overall performance. So that wasn't as significant an impact as other elements that we've introduced, such as trade, where we anticipated over 2% increase on our recycling performance. That being said, Priority 2 isn't just about flats, it's also about looking at small electricals and plastic film, which could give us sort of I think it was in the region of 1.5%. So there are other things that we are looking to do that will give us that greater gain. I'd have to check that in terms of the plastic film. I haven't got that figure to hand, but I think that was certainly more significant than the flats, which was definitely 0.2%.
Okay,
Wow.
thank you.
Are you counting 10% to get it over the 70, or are counting the 6%? How are you doing that, Claire?
So that would be 0.2% on our 64% that we achieved last year. So instead of 64.14, it would be 64.34.
It's getting very fine, isn't it, on this?
It is. It gets increasingly challenging to achieve those increases.
You've got a dial in there or something, a bit like the church fund, is it? So you can get above that level, because that strikes me that it's pushing it up by tiny little amounts all the time. Mark, did you want to add something there?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. Yes, you're spot on what you're saying. It's difficult now. We're getting into fine margins in terms of how we're needing to achieve our objectives. And as Councillor Morgan said earlier, we are also keeping to our pact with our communities as well. So we have been far more community driven and listen to our communities in terms of how we progress towards that 70%. So there are other authorities who have taken far more wide sweeping approaches to quickly achieve that target. But obviously we want to do so and progress with the goodwill of our community, which is, I think, commendable, in which and is in line with the approach that Torvine takes, and should be very proud of itself for doing so. So, there are ways that we could accelerate that, but what we determined to do is to work with our communities together so that we can increase that rate as well. Because as you can see, with going back to that diagram in the bin, there's a lot of things we can do to try and get that recycling rate up at the moment, and we'll do our damnedest to do that over the next couple of years through collaboration with our communities.
On the positive side, will a thermometer or a dial help?
Chair, I think that the thing that really gets to the public, I guess, is that bin. It's a good point.
It's good, isn't it? I do like
it's really powerful. And sometimes I've had comments back of we get the 70%, so what? But if you can see, reducing that bin level down to where it's virtually non-existent, that's, I think, it's the most powerful element. And then the percentages will look after themselves, I guess, then, won't they? If we could get the vast majority of people.
I'm getting from Claire that she eats, sleeps and drinks that, by the sound of it. She's smiling at me now. If those watching get that, I think that's important, because you're in the recycling business, which I've been in the past, and which our strategy group definitely got it as well, because they've been telling us that. I think it's important that if the public's getting a flavour from this, it's that. Thank you for that.
So, Chair, if I can come back very quickly, I think it's waste and recycling becomes all-consuming. I've even been out weighing my own red sacks and my Pink Sacks live some outside the authority, just to have the comparison. So it does get you.
I started on this nonsense in '83 with a horse and cart in Bristol, so I know exactly what you mean. Any rate, question 12, page 37. With regards to household curbside collections and reviewing the service, how will we gather the opinions of service users in order to aid improvement? That's a nice big question for you. Who wants that one?
Are you happy to take that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of getting feedback from residents, I think we've already touched upon this a bit. So there was the initial survey, the initial Raise the Rate survey, which followed on from feedback that, 3 weekly clearly was not a popular option. So we've taken on board feedback received from the Raise the Rate survey, and building upon that, we've done further engagement with residents. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be getting a report in the next month regarding feedback from the door-to-door engagement that we've been doing, which will give us even more detail in terms of what is stopping residents from recycling, what are the barriers, and how can we help them overcome those barriers. And obviously one of the simple barriers, which Mark has already explained, was that they didn't have the food caddies in the first place, and so we've been delivering those to those residents, but also talking about them. Is it the yuck factor? Well, why don't you start small? Start with just your tea bags and your coffee grinds. If that's less of the yuck factor, and quite a few people have anecdotally switched to recycling all their food waste just by starting small with things like tea bags and coffee grinds. And so we're using that now in literature moving forwards. So we're continuously engaging with the residents, not just through the doorstepping, but through the outreach sessions that I mentioned earlier on as well. And we will be using that information gathered, both sort of quantitative and qualitative data, to feed into the communications that we use moving forwards, because although we have talked about enforcement, communication is still key for us, and we want to engage before we go down that route and take residents on the journey with us to recycle as much as we can.
Thank you there. Any more want to come in on this one? All right. Next one on this is Councillor Linda Clark, number 13, Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we're still hanging around on page 37. And I'm moving on to street scene, and a subject that's dear to my heart. It's that creep increase in recycling again, where we're trying to separate out litter picking, fly tipping, and the compartmentalised bins. So I can see quite a few challenges in that. One being that our litter bins around the borough are also used for dog poo. So the contamination issue is sort of great. The time is going to take are we going to encourage litter pickers to separate it out on their picks? Is it going to go back to the yard to be separated there? It's time consuming, and it could have a cost implication, but it would raise the recycling rate, those fractions that we're talking about. So just wondered what your views were on that, really, and what challenges we need to try and overcome.
Councillor Clarkson and Chair, can I go first, and then I'm sure Claire,
yes, please,
if you happen to come in. Yeah, there's two issues that have come to my mind as you were talking, Councillor Clarkson. I'll take the first one, which is obviously recycle litter picking. We are investing in sort of dual hoops for our litter pickers, so that they can recycle as they collect as well, not just collecting one bag and then try and recycle. So that's the one issue. The other issue that's come to my mind as well is the difference to when anything top hatted is left to the side of a black of your purple lidded bin is what's recycling, what's just left as an overflow of recycling or residual. So we're working closely with our street scene colleagues as well to get that matrix, to get that flow chart in terms of what to do, what constitutes fly tipping, what section is going to be involved, so that there's no, because at the moment I think there are issues that fall between two stools in terms of who's going to do what with materials left in the street. I don't care what you call them, whether it's fly tipping, top hatting, whatever it is, it's material left on the street. And what are we going to do about it? So we're working hard to overcome that as well. So I hope that gives you some flavour. Claire, did you want to come in with anything else?
No, I think you've covered it. As you say, we're looking at those dual hoops for cleansing to enable when they're litter picking to recycle more. But we are also having regular meetings now with cleansing just to review all operations to see how we can recycle as much of the waste collected as possible. So that could involve some post-sorting, as you suggested, but not necessarily for our cleansing teams. It's looking at what's brought back to the waste transfer stations and whether there can be segregation there. So it is definitely an area, you're completely right, we should be looking at and that we are looking at. And we will be developing that in the coming months.
Right, thank you there. Any more?
Sure, you rise to the challenge.
Mark, did you want to come back again?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just to give some sort of comfort to members as well. That's something obviously we're not going to do unilaterally, but obviously I suspect this will be a subject of potential scrutiny again to get some feedback and direction from members.
I thought it might do. Thank you there. Right, next one, we're going on to priority 3 infrastructure, and it's question number 14, page 38. Councillor Parish, Norman Parish.
Thank you, Chair.
Norma.
Thank you. Do Torfaen have resilient and effective facilities for our residents to take their non-curbside waste? Because not everyone can get to the household recycling centres. So how are we supporting these people? And also in terms of accredited private contractors, do we provide links for the public to help guide them to check accreditation?
You okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. In terms of accreditation, my understanding is no, there's not. We have links to charities that'll help with certain collection of certain materials. Obviously, we have the bulky waste collection as well. If people can't visit the HWRC. But Claire, did you want to come in on any other issues?
No, I think you've covered it. Obviously, we've got, like you say, if they can't get to the HRC, we have got the bulky collection service. But in terms of checking whether they're reputable, there are links to the NRW site where you can check if somebody's a registered waste carrier.
I think this question was a bit along the lines of preferred contractor list, which you have with grants.
Yes.
That it might be useful to have one. You also do have a licensing system for scrappies, which, you know, is legal, decent and honest. And if possible, we could do something similar for that.
Yeah.
Because we haven't got the capacity to get rid of all this stuff up there, and it's difficult for people to know who is legal, decent and honest. Maybe that's something you could think about.
Chair, it's definitely something we'll take away and consider, definitely. But to answer Councillor Parish's question directly, I don't think we've got that in place yet.
Right.
Okay.
There's Nick first, and then Councillor Haller. I think you're muted, Nick.
I do have concerns about what's going on here, about having one recycling hub within Torfaen. There are areas of our communities that don't have transport to get to these places. And there are no, and to be quite frank, you're not going to put a kitchen sink on a bus and take it to the recycling centre.
You said that yesterday.
And there's also the issue that those people can't afford to get rid of their waste, and I'm seeing a shed load of fly tipping from that type of product, and that they can't handle and they can't get rid of. I know that this was mentioned before in a question by Councillor Janet Jones the other month. where we basically said that should we be more adaptable to those people by reducing the cost of that, because in the long term that waste does land up not into the appropriate place. Is there something that we could look at to make it easier for those residents? We're talking about supporting our residents in recycling and the journey of recycling. Is there a way that we can look at supporting these residents in a more positive way to be able to help them get rid of what waste they don't want and not landing up on the curbside, which eventually we do pick up? Thank you.
Dick, you might as well go on to question 15 because you've half-asked it.
Yeah, okay. So question, I'm on mute again, aren't I? No, I'm not. So what are the main barriers of having appropriate waste transfers in place, and how will these overcome what are the main barriers of having appropriate waste transfer stations in place?
You sort of asked it.
And how will these overcome, and what will be the timelines?
I got that in there while I was at it.
Yeah, can I go first, and then obviously I can defer to Claire if I may.
Thank you.
The bulky waste, obviously, you're talking about, and obviously, well, sorry, it's access to the waste household waste transfer station. Sorry if I mixed that up then. Sorry. Annual Waste Recycling Centre. Sorry, I'm getting two questions mixed up. Yeah, and obviously the bulky waste you're talking about, Councillor Haller, there's a charge against that, as you know, and obviously it has to be cost effective for the authority to operate that as well. However, you're right in terms of sometimes there's always an option for a trial to try and assess what the impact would be if we tweaked the service to try and drive up that uptake. Because I do it's a good point that you make in terms of what would be the additional cost of a trial or increasing the service, reducing the cost, compared to the cost it takes to remove the fly tipping. So it's something that I'll take away if I can, Councillor Haller, and I'm quite happy to have that discussion further, really, go outside of this discussion at this arena. You and I have these discussions, obviously, with regards to the pressures within your ward as well. So it's a two-pronged attack, which I'll take away and see what we can do to come up with a solution.
Just to quickly come back on this, currently I had a sofa outside a property for over a month that didn't get removed. I've had to get enforcement, I've had to get other officers involved in it. It's taken nearly 6 weeks to get rid of that. There's been officers' time in writing to those persons to ask them to remove it. It has gone. But the bottom line is, if that person was in a financial situation, if that was the need, that could have been removed within a couple of weeks. And it's taken my time and officers' time to be able to get rid of that sofa that has now gone. But that sofa's been there since January. It's got wet, it's got nasty, and there's been a lot of officer time spent on trying to get rid of that sofa.
Thanks,
just a bit of a concern. Sorry, we could talk about this for a long time, and I know it's not appropriate. So let's take this outside of it.
Nick,
okay, great.
Nick, you've got a problem. I think all of us have got there. Councillor Morgan, Sue.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome Councillor Haller's input. Mark will no doubt tell you this is another thing that I bend his ear about on a very frequent basis. Yeah. And I'm very, very keen that we do start trialling approaches to see what we can do in this area, because one of the most important things to me is that our waste management services are not only environmentally friendly, focused on tackling climate change and cost effective and efficient, but that they're equitable. That, you know, people have the same access and are able on a level playing field to participate in recycling as much as they can. And I think that's an important principle in itself. So, yeah, I'd really welcome, Nick, your input in discussions around any trials that we might be thinking of developing.
I think there's a few of us around the table would welcome that.
This is having a strategy committee. They're good on this. Councillor Clarkson, sorry.
Yeah, if I may, if I could bring it back to the waste transfer centres, because that's quite a large part of the issue we've got about being resilient in the future. How are we actually getting on with that? Finding sites that are going to be large enough to sort of take the increased capacity and will have a little bit more stability in the medium to longer term, say.
No question.
Chair, if I can come in on that one then. Thanks, House Clarkson.
Please.
Yes, it's that takes, obviously, as you're probably aware, that's part of work stream 3 within our sort of raise the rate strategy. So what we've got at the moment, I think the lease within our TCOH waste transfer station at the moment comes to an end sort of March 27. So that's the sort of timescale we're working to. We have identified sites where we feel a new waste transfer station or a waste transfer campus will be appropriate, and we are currently working with RAP and LP, which are local partnerships, and they are obviously sort of advisors to Welsh Government in terms of best practice, and we're having a preliminary design undertaken now. So we've looked at sort of mapping and forecasting our sort of likely waste streams. We've looked at whether it's more financially viable to ship out our material loose or whether they should be baled. Our assessment is that we'll get a greater income from baled materials, so that means we've got to account for a baler within our footprint. If we didn't, we could have a much smaller footprint, which obviously means it's cheaper to run. But we've done that cost-benefit analysis about what the end sort of financial position would be. So that's where we are at the moment, Councillor Clarkson. We're expecting the preliminary design to be complete end of March, at which time then we'll be to determine which is the best site, how much space we need, the footprint itself. Although we've got a good idea at the moment, but we want to get some data and some science behind it. So that's where we are at the moment.
That's very reassuring.
How many units are you using down at T-Calp? I remember taking T-Calp on. It went from 1 to 2, and then it wasn't big enough then. So I'm intrigued by.
I think we got a combination of 2 units that we use at the moment together.
That's what we had. This huge.
Joined.
Yeah. So are you going to something smaller? Are you now? No. I wouldn't have thought you would, Sam, somehow or another.
No, not with additional works, materials that we want to recycle as well. No, it's going to be a bigger footprint.
Yes, I remember starting with 1 unit down there back in the TCR days.
I think, Chair, by rule of thumb, I think it's a multiple of at least 1.5 times the size of what we got there, if not a bit more.
Thank you for that. Right, Councillor Clarkson, question 16.
Yeah, thank you. It's pretty much carrying on from where I was last time.
It was, wasn't it? You done it.
With regards to the onward sale, there's a slightly brittle element to this market, which has recently been highlighted to us around the loss of our capacity to collect in and get rid of tin foil, which has caused quite a lot of confusion to the residents in my area, and the loss of the stretchy plastic factory that we had in the locality. So we were just wondering what can be done to strengthen this area and to reduce risks in the future of the recycling that we are actually collecting in stalling, because we can't move it on to an appropriate customer that will be getting rid of it in a way that we're happy for it to be used in not just shipped out somewhere out of sight, out of mind.
So do you want me to take that on, Mark?
Yes, please, Claire.
So we're working closely with RAP, who have experts in marketing and onward sale of materials. So they're helping us, and obviously we've also got links in with Welsh Government. And what Welsh Government are doing is they are working nationally to try and secure end markets for materials. As I mentioned earlier, they want all local authorities to be collecting plastic film by 2027. So there's a significant driver there for them to ensure that there is a market. And I know that there is an off-taker who is developing a plant in Swansea at the moment, and they will be able to take plastic film in the medium term. So we're continuing to work with WRAP and Welsh Government to explore all options for new markets for materials as and when they become available. And obviously, as soon as we're able to take foil again, we'll communicate that out to the public. But at the moment, it's just that there isn't the demand for that material. So it can be a volatile market, and it does make things challenging for the waste team. But we are working as best we can, so not just with WRAP and Welsh Government, but with other local authorities as well, with neighbouring authorities, always linking in with them to see what they're doing with their materials and if they're experiencing the same issues.
Thank you there. Any more on that? Right, next one. We're on to priority 4 business recycling. Question 17, Councillor Norman Parish.
Right, thank you, Chair. Does the strategy include a target for responding to businesses regarding missed collections and or any other issues that might be raised?
Claire, do you want to cover that one?
So in terms of a target for responding to businesses who may have been missed, there isn't a specific target within the strategy, because the strategy is more about achieving the 70%, but certainly that's something we can look at including in our service standards. So I don't believe that timescales for responses is probably just refers to householders. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but we can certainly look to include something in there on response timescales, not just for businesses, but for residents as well, if that's not already covered in the service standards.
That'd be very helpful.
Yes, yeah.
Are you all right with
Do you
that,
get a
Norman?
lot of complaints from them? Because I've had a complaint recently. I mean, I don't think it's appropriate for me to go into it, you know, of regarding missed collections.
Chair, if I can come in, Councillor Parish, if you don't mind, I'm quite happy for you to share that with me offline, and we can definitely look into that issue and report back to see not only that the complaint is resolved, but what the underlying issue is.
Okay.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but your question is about businesses, and obviously we've worked very closely with businesses in terms of trying to develop their needs and to develop a sort of an appropriate sort of service for them as well. And I guess to be quite vocal, because they're paying for the service, if it wasn't meeting their needs. But obviously there are other providers out there as well, so it's an active market area as well. So, you know, we've got to make sure that we're on our game, otherwise businesses are able to go elsewhere.
That's a fairly sharp answer, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I will be in touch. Thank
Councillor
you.
Haynes, you want to come in on that one?
It's a question, but it's not a question that's in the list of questions. I noticed in the report, and apologies for my voice, I noticed in the report that NRW are the responsible body for enforcement of business recycling. Don't want to be negative, but are you aware of NRW actually doing anything within Torfaen of enforcement, and what are Torfaen doing to help assist that process? Because, as you know, there are a substantial number, or there were, I'm not so sure anymore, but there were a substantial number of businesses that were still not recycling even a few months ago.
Claire, do you want to take that one? Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, so obviously there's regular meetings between officers and NRW to discuss, you know, what's going on, not just within Torfaen but within Wales. And I think on the whole, NRW and Welsh Government are quite happy with the way that Torfaen are managing the waste that we collect in terms of our customers doing what's required. So we are working with our customers where there are issues and they're not segregating their waste correctly. We do have a dedicated engagement officer at the moment who's going out and liaising with those businesses just to remind them of the regulations. So I think There's not been enforcement action to date within Torfaen by NRW, but it's certainly something that they are monitoring across Wales, and working with officers to ensure that we work with businesses to get things right, rather than go again. You know, we don't want to go straight down the enforcement route. The initial stages are engagement. Let's try and get it right together before we go down that enforcement route. So I think at the moment they're still giving businesses the opportunity to adapt to the regulations, which are challenging for some who weren't separating anything at all before and now having to separate several materials.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, I was more because I think the majority of Torfaen Council commercial sector were the facility and what was on offer was really good, and the help that was really good. I'm talking more about the businesses that don't use Torfaen Council's commercial waste and still continue to not recycle, even though it is now, you know, you have to do it legally. And it was that enforcement I was more worried about, because I'm quite satisfied that Torfaen's commercial waste have nailed it with their customers, because it's been a really good process. So I praise there for the commercial waste department. It's more about not Torfaen commercial waste business that are not compliant, and it just seems unfair that some people cannot be and are not being challenged for it.
Well, the officers are providing us with a resolution on it, I think. Am I correct on that? Mark?
Chair, at the risk of coming in half through a conversation, so apologies I had to leave for 5 minutes. Yeah, Councillor Haynes, if there's anything we can do in terms of liaison with NRW with regard to that, and using our existing links to report some of those operators that are not complying, then we're happy to do so. Because at the end of the day, if they're not complying with the trade waste, where are they depositing their waste? And yeah, that's so, and it all builds into the greater picture, doesn't it? In terms of what we're trying to do with our communities, we can't just isolate and focus on the businesses that we're dealing with. It's because those other businesses are still probably residents within our community, and we need to ensure that we put in as much help and assistance and advice to everybody to encourage them to comply and work with us.
Thank you all. Right, next question, unless anybody's got anything. Question number 18, Councillor Nick Haller.
Yeah, this is about page 29. I think since we've changed the legislation's changed about businesses, that's, I believe, has helped raise the rate in many ways. But my question is, reviewing the services of annual to ensure the cost-effective service for both Torfaen and its customers. What is the criteria of the review, and what conversations are taking place about the services that business want from Torfaen? So you have a review of him. You talk about having a review annually. So what are the conversations taking place about the services businesses want from this? Obviously to help raise the rate.
Who wants that one?
If I can come in first, and then obviously I'm sure Claire will come in more detail if needed. In terms of those discussions, obviously that it's a commercial operation. So what we need to do is, if we're working with those trade organisations to ensure that we've provided service that is sufficient for their needs. If it's not, then obviously they're able to leave and seek that support elsewhere. Our model, I have to be very open and honest with you, Councillor Haller. Our model is based on it being sufficient and cost effective, and so we are very much aware of, we've got a quantum of traders at the moment, and that operation at the moment is cost effective in terms of not drawing down pressure on council budgets, so it's self-financing, and that's the balance we've got. It's not being done to earn any profit, but it's to comply with our legal statutory requirements and to operate that service without cost on the authority. So we are very much listening, and we're constantly reviewing with traders in terms of what their needs and ambitions are. But obviously that review must take place as well on an annual basis. But my understanding is and Claire will probably correct me, my understanding is those conversations are going on not just once a year, but on a continual basis.
Claire?
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything to that, Claire?
No, Mark's correct. We're continually reviewing it and ensuring it's a cost-effective service. And obviously, the pricing is reviewed annually in line with the cost of the service and inflation as appropriate. So I guess that's where the annual reference comes to. But we're continually reviewing the service and taking on board feedback from our customers.
Thank you very much indeed. So next section is priority 5: waste minimalisation, reuse, and repair. Question 19, page 40 is Councillor Clarkson. Are you there, Linda?
Thank you, Chair. This one's a little bit off the wall, but it is important to the circular economy. Repair cafes. They are a very popular idea with residents, but at the moment there's a sort of a bit of brittleness and risk because they're relying on volunteers again. We were wondering whether there might be business opportunity here with Torfaen Training Business Direct actually be involved as well to sort of assist people to set up in that area of repair and reuse of our sort of household goods and our electrical items. So it was more of an off-the-wall idea that would spread out to other departments in Torfaen, but could be of huge value and a very good news story.
Who wants to answer that one?
I'll take that if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting proposal. It's something that be very, very much keen to support on a trial basis, Councillor Clarkson. We're very much, I am very much tasked in terms of trying to engage with communities and empower communities and make them more resilient. So if I can help, and I can happily meet you outside of the meeting with obviously the exec member to discuss exactly how we feel this would be useful and how we can support that across the council. That's fine. Obviously, Gareth Beer as well in terms of start-up businesses and support there would be a useful contact as well, I would suggest. And Gareth and I work very closely together. So, yeah, more than happy to look into those opportunities. And it's not so much off the wall as you would suspect, Councillor Clarkson. It's these sort of conversations are being had at the senior level in the authority as well.
That's great. I can see Sue's got her hand up to come in.
Better let Sue come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just, welcome the inputs on that, Linda. It's something I'm really keen that we explore. And I think co-locating repair facilities alongside library of things approaches so that we're reducing waste and potentially adding a lot of value to families, but also to community groups who might be buying equipment repeatedly that they could simply be hiring from a library of things, and where basic repair facilities are skills that people have got within the community, giving them a business opportunity seems really sensible. So we'll certainly be bending Councillor Gordon's ear about this one as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, we've had a conversation about the lending libraries before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the suggestion. It's definitely something we'd welcome. And actually, it's something that came up through feedback through some of the outreach sessions we've been having on the strategy, how popular the repair cafes are. So we've already been linking in with our partner Waste Savers and our other partner Circulate to see how we can join up these groups and like you say, become just bolster really that reliance on volunteers so it's less brittle and more stable in the long term, and look to grow it as well. So, we're more than happy to look at how other partners can become involved and help that partnership to grow further.
Right.
Mark again.
Thanks, Claire, and thank you, Chair. Yes, and as Claire was talking, it reminded me of another initiative that Councillor Morgan's involved with as well in terms of and Councillor Williams as well, in terms of really to rejuvenate the climate ambassadors, but not just under the climate ambassador label, but to get all those interested groups together to sort of share resources, share expertise, share volunteers potentially, and work collaboratively. I can't even say it now, sorry. Collaboratively
it's a
together.
long meeting, isn't
Work
it?
together, yes. I'll put my teeth back in.
Can I,
but it's that part of that wider agenda, Councillor Clarkson, that is really gathering pace now. So yeah, it fits in nicely with that as well.
Yeah, if it keeps it out of the waste stream, that's great, isn't it?
Can I ask a question? Do we get anything for? I mean, favourite thing for allotmenters is buying wood from the reclaim yard. Do we? That sort of thing. And I mean, there's obviously popular television programme, the one, lots and lots of it at the moment. So it's actually quite fashionable. But I wonder whether we get anything. You know, the old 3 R's routine. And I've been an inveterate recycler of broken black boxes, bins, etc. When I've been on an allotment, they're full of this stuff. But even in the home context, you know, repurposing furniture. Is there any way we capture any of this stuff, or is it just desirable?
I have to defer to either Councillor Moore or Claire on this one, because to be honest with you, I don't know. It's the honest answer.
Because I asked that question before when we were talking about recycling. I mean, apparently we do capture if we take a road. You're the expert on roads. That was the question I remember asking before, where we grind up a road, take the grit out it, and reuse it in building. Does that gets registered, doesn't it?
Yeah. Go on, Claire. Sorry, you want to just talk about the.
It's a fascinating subject, this, and I don't intend to go on for long because I've got a meeting. I've got more questions to get in, but I think it's absolutely the side of all of this that's important.
Yeah, you're right. We do capture the rubble, as we call it, from highways work, but also we try to capture, you know, everything that we handle. However, we can't count anything that's not directly sort of managed by the authority. So we can count things because of our partnership with Waste Savers and Circulate. Yeah. We can count the items that they collect. But if we don't play an active role in repurposing that material, we can't count it towards our targets, unfortunately.
That's a pity, isn't it? Gosh. I love timber, you see, having been a venture playground leader in the past, and you know, repurposing timber. It's just a pity, isn't it? Because there must be a lot of the stuff going in and out like that. Mark?
Yeah, and as Claire's mentioned before, the waste and recycling is such a volatile area, because the material you're talking about in terms of highway materials, they call it arisings. There's demand then, obviously, to use that sometimes to run that into some of the unadopted streets to try and give them a better temporary surfacing as well. So there's always demand upon this material, not just to count it as recycling. So, it's pressure everywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah. Councillor Morgan, let's see.
Yeah, I just think it's important to make the point that we're not in the business of chasing recyclable materials for its own sake. The objective is to reduce residual waste in whatever ways we can. And whenever we do reduce residual waste, there's going to be less of it for us to collect. And the percentage is what we're after, isn't it? We're after the percentage of total waste that is recycled. So if we bring that total waste down in any means whatever and reduce residual waste, we won't go far wrong regardless of how it gets recycled.
Thank you, Sue. Right. Okay, everybody's finished on this one. Question 20, which is Councillor Parish. So there you are, Norma.
Right, thank you. You're still on page 40.
Yes.
Have mobile satellite options been considered for residents who may struggle to get to such places as the Steelhouse Reuse Shop in New Inn and Circulate Furniture, Repair and Reuse, the shop in Blaenavon, and Repair Cafe, Nappy Library at Pontypool Market?
Unless Councillor Morgan or Claire want to come in on that one. the answer to me, I suppose, at the moment is probably not, because I guess part of the some of these facilities need to have an area in which to serve. I suggest if there were too many, then obviously they wouldn't have that sort of that weight, that hinterland around them to support that level of usage. So that's my sort of take on it. But obviously, if there is a demand, then obviously, and which is identified by the community or by members, as pointed out by Councillor Clarkson as well, then obviously happy to assist and investigate to see if there is a demand for sort of those sort of facilities.
Yeah, it would be good.
I mean, the obvious suggestion is they could go to various shows or sales or car boots even with a selection of their gear, like the bike guy does. What's the name? Evans, I believe it is. He goes to various things, and I mean, if they've got a selection of portable gear they could go out with as a store, that would make sense, wouldn't it? When if they got time and facilities to do it.
Chair, but let's say, Councillor Parish, if you have knowledge of a specific need, then please let us know, and we'll happily assist.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor. Oh, I've got you down right as well. Sorry, it's on a. You were 20. Now you're 21 as well, Councillor Norma. Are you okay with that?
I think this has been done, Chairman. It's with regards to reviewing whether the bulky service
yes,
all needs to be 5 days a week, or that is it. We've been through that, haven't we?
You more or less have. You know, this was a question about expense.
Yes.
It's a very quick question about the expense of the bulk. If you want to comment on that, I think that that was a separate question.
Yeah, how much is the service being used and what costs are associated, as some residents have commented that it is quite expensive. We have been through this more or less.
No, we didn't ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sorry, Chair, just to come in, and Councillor Parish, I think that formed part of a council question, didn't it? I believe probably about 2 or 3 cycles ago.
It did,
my
yes.
understanding.
It was asked. So. So refer back to answer, is it? You'll get out, Mark.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair. I think it's a case of. I think we've done some benchmarking. I think around the region as well, and there is some sort of variation within the area, but by no means the most expensive within Gwent.
Okay.
Is my memory of the question, the answer that we gave to the council question.
We won't belay that one because we're trying to move on this. Question 22, Councillor Nicola.
Thank you. Very aware of the time that we've got allocated left for this question.
I am too as well.
So clearly there's a big issue around the number of residents continuing to place food waste in their purple litter bins. We've discussed this. Are we asking them why they find it difficult in order to overcome this issue? I think we've really discussed the fact that we've now got people that are doing it, but I think there's a lot of issues that are related around why people don't do it. Are we asking that question?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the door-to-door engagement team out at the moment, and they have specifically been focusing on food waste and asking residents what their barriers are to recycling food waste. So there are some questions on that, and we will be getting a report back in the next month, which will tell us what the findings are in terms of, is it barriers getting caddy liners, barriers getting caddies, the yuck factor. So we'll get some data on that in the next month.
Okay, so just coming back quickly on that, will members get notified of the issues that are related to that, to see if we can help those residents in any way?
We can certainly share the results and let you know what the findings are and what the recommendations are.
Okay, great, thanks. Right, so
Sorry, Chair, can I come in on that one very quickly?
Yes, please.
And Councillor Hawler, we'd be grateful in terms of members' suggestions about the mechanism which you'd like that information shared as well.
Okay.
That'd be useful from scrutiny, I would suggest.
Yeah, okay,
We'll make a note of that and bring it up in the observations. Right, priority 6, decarbonation services. Back to you,
so
Nick.
that's back to me. So
23.
recycling services target to meet the new net zero ambition in 2030, in line with the Council corporate priorities. Could you provide an update on the types of contracts that are in place in terms of the current fleet of vehicles and when this will be reviewed?
There's a whole range of buyback leases, effectively, with our equipment. So what we tend to do is we buy the vehicles and then lease it off a lease company. We find that's the most effective use of our revenue budgets. So there are, as you say, there are a range of vehicles that are coming to the end of their life, and as they are coming to the end of life, we look at the best way to replace those. Usually, I think it's about 5-6 years is the sort of key operational life of our fleet. We had unfortunately left them age a little bit too long previously, and then we had problems with reliability and service impact. So that's where we are on that one. We are looking potentially at the EV options. At the moment, to be frank, we are trialling 2 EV residual vehicles. They seem to be stable now, but the market, I suggest, is still not mature enough for us to have confidence that we can transition totally over to EV. Yes, for our smaller fleet, but the topography of valley communities as well does create a challenge in terms of large-scale EV-powered vehicles. And as we discussed before, I think it's some manufacturers are going over to pushing hydrogen as an option as well. So does that answer your question, Councillor Hawler?
Thank you.
Thank you very much there. So RS 24, page 43. How do we evaluate the role of education enforcement? How we evaluate the role of education is vitally important. Should this be reflected within the KPIs in table 3? I think that's Claire by the sound of it. The technical. Have you got that all right, Claire?
Yes, thank you. So we will be evaluating them in terms of recycling performance, so looking at the recycling performance, which is one of the KPIs, and also monitoring residual waste tonnages. So initially they'll be targeting things like side waste and top hatting, so we'll be looking at reductions in residual waste. So certainly we can look to include that more specifically. I think what we were conscious of is what we don't want to be doing, what we 100% don't want to be doing is setting targets for issuing enforcement actions. It's more about quality conversations, education and behaviour change. So we will be monitoring that change in behaviour through the tonnages and through the recycling performance, rather than setting targets for enforcement actions, because I think that would be a negative thing to do.
That's a very positive remark. Thank you. Right.
Chair, sorry. Chair, if I can come in, sorry, in terms of that, to give some comfort as well, I think Claire's and the research as well, but in terms of, even if you go down the enforcement route, the enforcement is really just added engagement, and even at the very start, where you consider people are need that enforcement process to start, very few actually mature out to a fixed penalty notice being issued. There's a lot of engagement through that process and encouragement as well to comply as well. So just to let you know about that.
Well, it goes back to what I keep hammering on about on this and our social contract. A positive social contract is always much better than a negative reinforcement, and we've got it there if we need it. We don't want to do it unless we have to. I think you would support that. Right, next question is Councillor Clarkson, 25.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, still on the table 3. Excuse me. The table suggests annual reviews of increased recycling and composting, and the customer survey and continued engagement. What we were wondering is, should these be reviewed more regularly than annually in order to respond to any issues that might be highlighted more swiftly?
Yes, that's a really good point. I mean, because we actually actively monitor things like that quarterly in terms of recycling performance, so we can certainly review that in the table. I suppose what it was saying was that there'd be an annual sort of survey potentially of customers, but certainly from a recycling performance perspective, we would be looking to monitor that quarterly at the least, probably even monthly.
It's sort of engagement and this stuff seems to be sort of like a continual, ongoing process as well, doesn't it? But there's obviously got to be a point at which we pick to report back. But yeah, we just thought quarterly might be a little bit more appropriate to pick up the flavour of what's happening out on the ground.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Clarkson, I report to Exec Board every quarter in terms of recycling performance as well, just to let you know. So, you know, it's been looked at that level.
You okay with that, Linda?
Yeah, it's fine if that information can be shared, so we're all up to agenda. That'd be brilliant.
Brilliant, thank you. Look, number 26. If you could do that, please, Norma. Sorry about that.
Right, 26. This is page 43 too. Members felt that complaints and compliments should be measured within the CPIs, including satisfaction around the outcomes of any complaints. Would you agree?
Mark?
Chair, we already have a complaints process as well in terms of run by our corporate complaints team as well. So they look at the complaints. In fact, they've got another category as well, which is just requests for service, and that is monitored on a quarterly basis as well. So we go through number of complaints, reason why, investigation, whether it's progressed to a level 1 and 2 corporate complaint as well, and obviously the request for additional service where they feel as if they've had to contact corporate complaints just to ask that the service be provided. So that's already reported and reviewed by managers on a quarterly basis.
Right,
okay.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Morgan?
Yeah, just quickly to say that I'm keen to explore as well the patterns that are emerging from members' inquiries in relation to waste issues. So I'm really grateful to members for continuing to use the member inquiry service to report problems that are genuine problems rather than things where residents have clearly not done what they should do and are complaining about it, but where members are convinced that there's a general problem with the system or the quality of service, to carry on using members' inquiries, because we are looking at that information and we're keen to get a picture of any patterns that are emerging.
No, I know where you're hot on that. Thank you. And now, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That contact from members can't be overstated. It provides us with a valuable insight to investigate some of these issues, and then to challenge our staff as well, and challenge ourselves in terms of, are we as good as we think we are? Are what, our operatives telling us, oh, no, we've collected everything? Just to challenge and just to have that sort of good look at ourselves and ensure that we're keeping on our toes.
Right, thank you. Last question, if that's the end of that one, we're now on service standards, and I've got this one. It's a bit of an opus, so listen carefully on this one. Page 45, and it says, during our pre-agenda, members suggested that residents and businesses still needed more clarity about what can be collected and how it should be presented. It was also referenced how the receptacles were not always returned to the correct location by the crews. Getting all of the above right is important and would likely bring more residents on board in order to achieve our aims. Therefore, would you agree with members that there is an opportunity for the social contract in place around recycling to be reframed as a charter between TCB and residents hyphen businesses? Are you okay with that, or do you want me to repeat it?
I've got that. Councillor Morgan, did you want to come in on that first? For me?
Yeah, I mean, the charter idea, I think, is intriguing and definitely worth considering. I do think that the pact we have with residents about what they can expect from us and what we're expecting from them, and particularly emphasising that, you know, we are in a dwindling number of councils now that are still committing to continuing 2 weekly collections. I mean, there may not be any that are outright stating that they are committed to 2 weekly collections. We may be the only council that's actively confirming that, and that's a big thing for our residents. So having some sort of statement of that agreement as a charter, I think, is really intriguing. It's obviously can't be a very, very detailed one, because the methods of collection and changes might happen in the future, which would make that charter out of date very quickly if we put a lot of detail into it. But certainly key principles about respect, about you know, taking items that are left out in good faith wherever possible, principles like that, which Mark knows I bang on about a lot anyway. I think there's some scope for developing that charter. I like that idea very much.
Linda?
Yeah, if I could just quickly add something on the standards. It's regarding what people can do to help the council. There's just a little bit of ambiguity in there around textiles, placing them into carrier bags, which is something that people have specifically been told that to bag them and label them. And that's sort of, it's little things like that is causing confusion for the crews and for residents. And then textiles are getting left by the side of bins, and they then look like residual waste being left. Yeah. Again, we get a lot of residual waste in carrier bags by the side of a bin. It's difficult for the crews to actually identify it. We just need to tighten up on little details like that, because any amount of confusion is enough to stop some people even trying, and into the purple lidded bin it goes.
Right. Is that your final bit on that, Linda?
It is.
Right, Brill. Mark?
No, valid point. Exceedingly valid point. And like Councillor Morgan, I'm really enthused about that charter, because we're asking people, and as Councillor Clarkson's demonstrated as well, we're asking people to really, you know, to engage with this recycling process. We owe it to them to give them the very, very best possible service as well. There are service improvements being made. We are looking at rationalising those services, and the benefit for that is, and what I've mentioned to staff is, yeah, we will be fair in terms of giving you legitimately sized rounds that are manageable, but in return those crews will return those receptacles to the position where they found them. So it's you know, we've got to be fair with our staff, but we've also got to be very fair with the public as well. So yeah, I'm fully on board with that. That's an excellent idea.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I think we arrived at that one collectively. That wasn't my idea. And the social contract as a charter, I think, flags up. And it's fair on the crews and operatives, and it's fair on the residents, because everybody does their bit. That's what we're on about. And you know, states it. It's a nice idea, and it's a workable idea. And it then comes back to Claire's 70% of the percentage. So I'm going to have this image now, you see. So we're at the end now. Is there anything you all want to add, or are you happy that we've been through it? That's been a lot of hard work, that is, going through this little lot. And rightly so, because there's a lot of work in it. Mark, you want to come back on this?
Yeah, and this is not empty thanks. It's genuine thanks for your time and effort and that you put into this. It's really important for us to get the feedback, and I'm hugely appreciative of the time and effort that you've put in, members, for this. It's and that's again that's not hollow thanks. It's really useful for, I'm sure, Claire and I and Councillor Morgan as well.
Sue?
Yeah, Chair, if I can just extend those thanks to Mark and Claire as well for the work that they continue to do, and the open and honest way that they continue to work with us to try and improve these complicated systems that lead to a lot of hassle for members on the doorstep and with their local residents. So it could easily become fractious. But I'm so grateful for the way that they support us patiently and listen to us all, and that we're a team that's trying to work together to make these things improve. And I really, really value that approach. So thank you to you all for that constructive contribution. Very, very much appreciated.
There were about 3 or 4 other people that did these questions. I'm sorry there's so few of us here. We had to work our socks off this afternoon, but this committee's normally about 9, but they had to go elsewhere. But there's a lot of thought gone into that. All the people on this committee are passionate about recycling. It's one big issue that most members are. Thank you very much for your time. You can go now if you like, because we now deliberate on this. I think you got a fairly good idea of the flavour of this. At any rate, Claire, thank you for doing the report. We appreciate you did that. And I still, as I said, I got this thing about your percentages. I know Sue always gets about, but getting to 70%, it's not easy. And I think hopefully we can come out with enough deliberations to get you there and possibly a little bit beyond it. We feel that's really important as a committee.
Thank you all. Look forward to your recommendations.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Right. Hello, everybody. Are you there, Garen? Where is he? There he is.
I'm still here, Chair.
Right. What do you want to throw in that is a takeaway from this, or do we want to listen to what Garrett's managed to capture? Which way do you want to go on this one?
I'm happy to throw mine in if you want to.
I'm waiting for you, Nick. I thought you would. Thank you very much for doing that. That's needed, I think.
So do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please, Nick. I'm waiting.
Right, okay, so we've had an agreement to look to a programme to help those that can't afford to take recycling to the waste centre.
Yeah.
So that's a recommendation to work towards helping those that can't. That's one.
Yeah. All right, you do a few, Nick, and then Linda can do a few. I'm sure Linda, both you and Linda got quite a few there.
Visually demonstrate what volumes of waste can be reduced by roadshow. So the idea that we open it up in a way that we actually show will demonstrate what goes into a bin and what shouldn't go into a bin, to visually show that it is to be able. Visually show what goes into a bin that shouldn't go into a bin when they're on the road shows.
Well done, that's good.
But I think Garrett will get the hand of that one.
I'm hoping Garrett's cut. I mean, Linda, before I mention the word charter,
I got one more.
Go on, Nick.
And how we get feedback on the biggest issue about residual waste right now, I think. We might agree, or we might not agree, is about the amount of food that goes into those bins. It's always been an issue, and we're now getting to a situation where we're going to get the feedback from general public because they visited all these stores, and how we get that feedback into the councillors to make them understand what's happened there. So maybe we need a seminar based on the feedback that's been achieved by these people knocking on the doors.
You mean the 20% in the black and the purple in the bin?
No, I'm talking about the people that are currently looking at talking on the curbside.
Okay,
that are actually putting the information together.
Yeah. Enforcement and education.
The education. It would be good to be able to feedback what our communities are saying to those people that are knocking on the doors in the seminar.
Right. No, that's a very good point. Thank you for that.
Right.
Linda?
Okay. Firstly, change table 3, those annual reviews to at least quarterly.
Yeah.
Within the strategy. Firm up on the standard that we've put about how people present
Yeah.
Because we're contradicting ourselves there, saying put it in a carrier bag when all along we've been saying don't put it into a carrier bag.
You've got a thing
For
about this carrier
textiles,
bag,
I
haven't you?
have, because
Linda's great carrier bag.
I have got a big thing. They're supposed to be bags for life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about not confusing people, basically.
Yeah.
Tell them very clearly how they need to put things out. I'd like to make sure we've got something in writing about looking at the way that litter picking and fly tipping is separated.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure that comes back, it goes into the basket for next year, and we can look at that in the future. But how we're going to word that, Geraint might be able to help us out with that. And I'd like something about the continued staff development to ensure incentive to stay in career progression.
That was a very good point you drew out there. Okay, yeah. Norma?
Just to get it in black and white, you know what I mean?
Norma?
Right. I'm
trying to draw you on a bit on this.
Yeah, item 7. Well, what I've written down, most of it's been said now. Item 7, in terms of communication and engagement, we're relying on a lot on complaints and that. And the knocking on doors. Well, I think this committee should have the results of that, if nothing else. You know what I mean? For us to know how that's getting on. On the crystal clear, we need to have a clearer account of some of the written stuff we've looked at today. Can we put that in it?
What you mean? What was
the standards?
Yeah. No. She's talking about
the wording.
Yeah, plain English. You're talking about plain English.
Yeah.
Can I come
years
in? Sorry.
Ago,
please,
in terms of the accessibility of the document, because they mentioned an easy read version, so obviously
easy read. That's what it was, wasn't it?
And also there was the other bit where they had under the title, if I'm right, it says our challenges, where Councillor Morgan suggested that she agreed that was wrong, and it would be better if it was phrased as our context, I think she said.
Yeah.
So, is that what you're getting at there, Councillor Parish?
Yeah, the easy read, crystal clear, no jargon.
Yeah, the quarterly one, you said that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a huge amount to draw out on recommendations, really.
No.
Because the important thing to me is that this comes back to scrutiny at some time, because we're right at the beginning of such an important process.
Yes. Yeah.
We need to keep a watch on.
The other thing that I will now bring in, because they seem to like it, was the idea of the charter.
Yes.
The last point in 27, the chart, they like that very much by the sound of it. Mm-hmm. So we have that in there.
I'd like to put into writing as well something about the business opportunities for reuse.
So you agreed about the charter. You're okay with the charter idea? Good?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Dick, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy on that. I think it's really positive.
It's an easy do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good.
Social contract charter. Yeah, go on. Right, so what were you just saying, Linda? You were just going to finish up, then Nick's got his hand up.
I don't know, I've just got one to go back on Linda. Because, Linda, I get where you're coming from about the bags, about carrier bags for textiles.
Confuses the crews.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to say something really out of turn now. Could we have two different colour bags?
Sorry?
Could we have two extra colour bags, one for batteries and one for clothes?
No.
No more bags.
We could do for some more bags, couldn't we?
People only put them out occasionally.
I know.
And pedal bin liners I use. But a plain bag, if we were saying to people use a plain bag and label it as textiles, just write on it with a big black pen.
Yeah, can I just say...
Rules need to be clear of what we're picking up.
Let Norma go.
Can we suggest that we regularly remind our constituents what they need to do, because sometimes they'd forget, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, perhaps they haven't put clothes out in the past, and they don't know what
It's
to do.
very complex,
Well,
isn't it?
if we sort of
Is that more common?
remind, no, yes, communicate with them,
Yeah.
and if the, you know, our Torfaen talks, you can have it in there now and again, just to
Right. Well, what I want to
people's
do.
memory.
Can I bring Garen in now? Just see what he's
Yeah.
captured that we might have not got. Just see what he's got.
Yeah.
Come on then, Garen.
Thanks, Jay. No, everything I captured, you said, bar one, it was about the service standards. When you asked the question around timescales for responding to businesses about complaints and issues, they said that it was something that they could put into the service standards. So I didn't know if you wanted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, chuck it in.
Yes.
Right. Anything? Let's got your list. See what we got that we can bang on this report. I think we've got a good capture there so far. It's stuff.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. Just, bear with me a sec. I'm just jotting that last
Go
one
on.
down a sec.
I don't want to keep you past our past. I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah, now by 20 past. Right, so I've got the trial around bulky waste for those who can't get it to the recycling centre or can't afford to. The visual examples.
Norma's nodding. Well.
The visual examples at the road shows in terms of what should and shouldn't go into the bins. Feedback.
The big bin.
Yeah, the big brown bin.
That's
The
our
giant
benchmark.
10-foot bin. Yes, I like
And
that
as
idea.
we're progressing, we show the bin changing. That's a really good visual.
Yeah. But we're all agreed about the big purple lidded bin, which I actually want to keep the back.
Yeah, I think that's what we just said. Yeah.
10-foot
Okay,
bin.
can I just add to that? You could, because of the nature of what it is, you could have a bin cut in half. You could demonstrate a bin with no waste in it.
Don't complicate life. Can't we just draw
No, just
one?
cover it in perspective, and then you'll be able to. No, there would
Just
be a
draw
bin.
it.
A bin cut in half that would show the residual waste as it would be with the full 35%, and show
We're not all
how much
on the
waste was in
strategy
it,
committee,
and
is it?
when it
Well
wasn't,
done.
just an ease of visual. Come on, I'm more visual than anything else.
Nick, you're damn good on this. Yeah, I get it. I like the idea of the 10-foot one, and I brought the idea in of the.
You want a 10-foot bin? Where are we going to keep it, and how are we going to move it around?
Get some bloody idea over.
It's just all bonkers, man.
No,
I'm not wanting a 10-foot bin. It's that other person over there.
Chairman.
No, back to being serious. It's been a long meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, Chairman, couldn't it be a cardboard cutout rather than cutting
That's
a
what
bin
I'm
in
on about.
half?
A cardboard cutout bin that
Yeah.
gets the point over. I don't want Dan Binner back at Dan.
Let them sort it out. I just made a suggestion, right?
Nick, you're good. Where's he gone?
He's gone.
He's under the sheep.
Chair, should I continue with the list?
Yes, please do.
So
Nick's under the sheep.
you suggested having a seminar in order to get the feedback from the door-to-door engagement. Table 3, changing one or two of the items from annual to quarterly. Firming up the standards regarding presentation due to contradiction around carrier bags. Looking at litter picking and fly tipping in future baskets. Continued staff development to ensure
retention.
I wrote
Staff.
development twice then. Thank you for that, Councillor Clarkson. The easy-to-read version and changing the that one particular bit is suggested by Councillor Morgan. The charter, obviously, basically like that idea around the social contract. The business opportunities around stuff like the repair cafes. Regularly remind residents regarding the need, what they need to do. As Councillor Parrish suggested, just periodic reminders in various forms. And the last one that I mentioned, obviously, the service standards to be updated around timescales for responding to businesses.
Can I just
anything we've missed?
I think
yes.
Is it?
Nick, you ready? They're talking about the bins and the recycling are there. Could we have the opportunity for them to look at changing recycling the litter bins into recycling bins without the borough? So you put cans in there are lots of places.
I think that's already.
Didn't we already have that one, Geraint?
Isn't that already in?
Is it written within it? So change the bins over to recycling bins, not just litter bins.
Didn't I say explore the problems, the challenges?
I think probably Linda's suggestion, explore it, like they've got in the shopping centre in Cwmbran. They do that in Cwmbran.
We've got big problems with contamination and how it will be managed. Yeah. So yeah, it's something that needs a lot more investigation and exploration. If we're going to have to tell people to take dog muck out of our litter bins, if they're going to be segregated, or if we're going to have to put specific bins in for that, it's something we need to look at in more detail.
I think your word explore is a good one.
It's progressed a lot from the last time we looked at it, if you remember, Stuart, when it was just flatly, oh no, we can't do that.
Guys, I asked this question at full council on Tuesday, didn't I? I asked about the amount of fly tippings going on and the doggy bin waste is not going. I did ask the question on Tuesday, so hey.
Have you made anything of that one, Geraint?
If you're a litter and recycling fuels like they've got in Cwmbran shopping, then you get progress.
This dog muck doesn't come into Cwmbran Town Centre.
You're right.
There's no dogs.
But if you put it in the litter bin, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but then we've got to work out how we educate people about using the correct compartments.
You don't want it in the recycling bit, do you? Then you've got the problem of co-mingling as well in the recycling bit.
Exactly.
Which is
and that's where does it get sorted? Does it get sorted?
That's the question.
I love the dual hoop idea. Yeah. But for the crews that are collecting out and about for us, where do they deal with the contamination and where is the sorting done? It needs a bit more looking at. If it comes back to scrutiny in 12 months, if it's in our basket, hopefully it will have moved on quite a bit by then.
So use the word explore. You are right. Right English there. You right with that, Gary?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Thanks, Chair.
I don't want to do this any longer. So anything else we've missed?
I don't think so.
Right, that sounds all. So can we just have a quick go through what we got so far, please?
That's what I just did, Chair.
Okay, but we won't prolong it any longer. So what we'll do is get Geraint to post this all out. You have a look, and if you've missed it, it's not quite, you can come back to Geraint. Do the usual thing, shall we?
Yeah, yes. Please.
Yes. Thank you, guys. It's been a long one, and you've done a lot of heavy lifting on this.
Can I just did you want us to remain for 2 minutes, Geraint, to evaluate?
Well, we still need to do the next item. It's just briefly for me to come in. So, did you want to move on to that one? Do you want me to move on to that one quickly, Chair?
I'm just getting what I got to say here because there's a bit on the end I should say. What's it? Is it date? I've only missed a bit.
Item 6, Chair, is the item for next meeting. Do you want me to just quickly?
Item for next meeting, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, as members will know, initially when you decided on the remaining 2 baskets at the meeting at the end of Jan, you were going to have the highway asset management plan today, and then in a month's time it was going to be a recycling report. Due to the timescales around when the decision needed to be made, the chair agreed to flip them around. So it's just basically to confirm that you're still happy to proceed, obviously, with the highway asset management plan on the meeting on the 10th of April.
Very much.
Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
It's a favourite subject, isn't it?
and the lights have gone off on me.
I thought you went dark all of a sudden.
Gosh. So the date of the next meeting is the 10th of April, is it?
Yep.
I got that. So we better let you go now, and thank you everybody. A hell of a lot of contribution there. Lot of heavy lifting, and I like Nick's sheep. I want one. Sorry.
Okay.
You got a sheep next to you.
You got my sheep.